Conversations on sex, gender, and sexuality. Hi, I'm Randa elbih. In our society, there are clear connections between sex, gender, and sexuality. Judith Butler calls it the heterosexual matrix. If you're born male, you grow up to be a man, and you have sexual feelings for females. If you're born female, you grow up to be a woman, and you marry a male. That's the standard story.
But we create these constructions between sex, gender, and sexualities through the ways we interpret ourselves, others, and the way we view the world.
Yes, history shows that maleness and femaleness, the bodily expressions of gender, are socially malleable. For example, medieval scientists, physicians, naturalists, philosophers, artists saw one sex, men as the main sex and women like men but lesser, lower in power and strength and less perfect.
Going along with what you just mentioned, in pre-capitalism one-sex idea, women partnered with men in agricultural sustenance for the family, while in another historical period, the context that defined industrial capitalism brought in a new division of labor focusing on the division between men and women, highlighting differences in physical, different medicines, cosmetic equipment, as well as public life and civic responsibilities. Housewives, army, politician. Healing had belonged to women's sphere for before men claimed it to men. Before, yeah.
According to Ouellette and Whitner, sex is complex interplay of genes, hormones, environment, and behavior, with loop-back effects network between bodies and society. We use the adjectives male and female intersex when referring to apparent biological, chromosomal, or genital features of sex.
So, is there one sex, two sexes, or exactly how many sexes are there?
Based on chromosomes, there are infinite number of sexes starting with the norm XX for female and XY for male. But there are people with one chromosomes and others with three, four, and five, which leads to Fausto-Sterling's five sexes argument. The main categories are male and female, and infinite categories in between. Scientists call intersex, who either have no reproductive systems or have a mixture of both reproductive systems, or those who biologically developed away from the norm of female and male. Those individuals who did or do not fall under one of those two sex poles are disciplined by society. For instance, doctors do surgeries on intersex infants and children without their consent.
Is this one of the goals of transgender activism? For instance, adopting a feminist agenda, one of the goals of transsexualism movement is to question societal treatment of people based on their sex and gender expression. Another goal of the movement is to give people control over their body and to create awareness to diminish institutional and societal punishments if the people do not comply to the social order. So I hear people using sex and gender interchangeably. This confuses me because I think that when people talk about sex, they mean biological sex, and when they talk about gender, they mean identity, either ascribed by society based on one's sex or an adopted identity unrelated to one's sex. I am unclear about the distinction.
Lorber agrees with you and wrote that sex, gender, and sexuality are terms that can confuse us now because they refer to the real world and what they refer to is becoming really blurred. In terms of gender, there's no clear distinction between being a male and being a female other than biologically. For instance, in terms of hormones, there are variations among people based on their levels of androgens, which is testosterone, and estrogen that influence their inclination towards the poles of female-male behaviors, emotions, and psychology. Consequently, how could society get set rigid gender codes and norms? There is an ongoing debate among gender scholars regarding whether nature or culture is responsible for turning sex into gender. For instance, Edward Stein, he sees a separation between sex and gender, uses the term sex gender to reflect that some things we attribute to biological sex might turn out to be the outcome of social gender. To him, sex, which is nature, and gender, society, and culture.
This is similar to Feinberg's 1998 argument about the gender-coded colors pink and blue for infants.
Susan Kessler and Wendy McKenna, who are social psychologists, go a step further and treat sex as an aspect of gender, where even genes, chromosomes, and hormones are socially constructed. They argue that scientists assume two sexes based on looks and dress code. Instead, they should question the natural attitudes that insist on two sexes based on looks and conduct scientific experiments on the brains of deceased people to identify difference. They insist that reality is what we see and experience directly.
Yes, I remember a quote by Judith Butler that said, "There is no core or bedrock human nature below these endlessly looping process of the social production of sex and gender, self and other, identity and psyche, each of which is a complex cultural construction. The paradox of human nature is that it, it is always a manifestation of cultural meanings, social relationships, and power politics. Not biology but culture becomes destiny."
Yes, Judith Butler confirmed that the way people saw and continue to see biology and sexuality mirrored the social order of society. Bodily structures reflected and legitimized men's social dominance.
Ah, that is why in other societies and cultures such as Dayak community of Jirai, according to Helway's ethnographic study, when a man climbed to a woman's sleeping chamber, she did not perceive that to be rape. She said it is only a penis. While in the United States, rape is magnified, universalized, and perceived as a threat for women. It is even associated, which in turn scares females from males and reproduces by reproduces the gender hierarchy and the patriarchal system.
Yes, also the fact that other societies view gender differently confirms the theory that gender is socially constructed. For instance, Two Spirit People in Canada, 1990, people's bodies house both a feminine and masculine spirit, are viewed in high regards. The Hijiras in India, who are neither men nor women nor homosexuals, they do not have external male genital, they see themselves as man plus woman, but like to be counted as women despite seen by others as male without maleness, not men are not women. Similarly, Zanis of Oman, like Hijras, are not considered males and socialize with women despite the clear separation between males and females in Oman's Muslim society.
But some gender scholars reject the notion that gender is socially constructed. For instance, Serrano argued that while many gender theorists have focused on attempting to demonstrate that this sort of socialization produces gender differences, it seems more accurate to say that in many cases socialization acts to exaggerate biological gender differences that already exist. By doing so, she argues that gender theorists try to erase gender differences or play them down. She believes this is problematic because it does not give room to gender diversity. She thinks the real problem is in trying to create the illusion that men and women are opposite sexes. Feinberg added to Serrano's argument by emphasizing that gender is not just a social construction, one of two languages we learn, but gender is meanings we make out of what we are taught. To her, gender is working in progress, just as we are all work in progress.
Like I said, the relationship between sex, gender, and sexuality is complex and tangled, and requires future conversations as we read and discuss new chapters of Gendered Worlds and other scholarly articles.
I look forward to the future conversations to untangle these issues.
Thank you.